Do you like liar's dice? Do you like bluffing? Do you like die rolling in general? Do you like pirates? Well, we're talking about lying pirates because this is sort of like if you combine One Piece, the anime, if you're familiar with that, you want to be the pirate king with liar's dice, right? What do you need to know? Brief overview, impressions, and a little bit of, is it right for you? Let's talk. So the concept is relatively straightforward, right? Shake, rattle, and roll. Basically, you bluff, you lie, you guess, you play, and you move. And that's the basic gist of this game in a very quick nutshell. You have your own pirate crew of dice. Everything is represented by dice in this game, and that's probably the biggest point that you need to know. You're going to be rolling, bluffing based off of those rolls, and then you're going to be using those rolls to determine who moves where, who wins what, and who moves how far. And that's the basic gist of things, like King of Tokyo meets Liar's Dice on steroids, if you will. And so it's a very interesting concept because it really goes right into, dives heavily into the dice rolling. And so that right there is going to be the biggest make it or break it for you. Do you have a group of people that enjoys the chaos of dice rolling as you roll your dice, liar's dice-esque thing? I think there are 4 3s. Well, I think there are 4 4s. Well, I think there are 5 4s. I think there are 3 6s. I think there are 6 3s. Like, how many times can you go around, and how dynamic is your group going to be when you're going over this first phase of boom, 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 until somebody basically calls BS. And when someone calls BS, well, someone's either right or wrong. And that determines, again, the second step of things of who moves, who gets the ability to move. Because if you're right or you're not wrong, you go. If you're wrong, haha, see you later. Then it's just play cards, right? It's play cards during the action phase. Do stuff. Move stuff. Move around the squares of this board. And that's probably the second biggest point here, is the dynamics of the squares on the board. Because we're sort of used to, if you think of King of Tokyo, where, you know, you're moving and you're getting these dynamic positives mostly. But the spaces on this board are going to give you both boons and curses at the same time. And so you may only want to move 1. You may want to move 2. You may just want to go in there because you don't know what's going to happen until you roll an X or O-sided die and see how things sort of shake out. And sometimes, frankly speaking, it's a 50-50 good or bad. And how lucky are you feeling becoming the Pirate King? Those tiles, though, that are so massively important, and this is probably the best thing about this game, is because those tiles laying around the outside, they're modular, they're configurable, they are adaptable, and it comes with a total, if you include the expansion, of 26 of these different tiles that are all different. And that's the nice thing, because you're not getting overlapping, duplicative tiles that are just doing the same thing, right? Mystic Fog, Deal with the Dead, Broken Compass, Mermaids. A lot of them, I will say, though, are basically, roll the XO die, and if you get an O, positive. If you get an X, negative. And a lot of it all revolves around that first phase of things, those crew dice that you're going to be starting out with, that you're going to be gaining, losing, trading, sacrificing, or even giving to other people, because that's ultimately going to affect how you do in the first round as well. Like, how well or how many of those are you actually going to be rolling? Are you going to roll a ton? Are you not going to roll a ton? Where does that dynamic fall? How do you like that? And as you can imagine, if there's going to be heavy dice rolling, how do you deal with that? Especially when I tell you that it's going to be 50-50 in terms of dice rolling, right? In terms of positives and negatives. And that's where the action cards come in. You've got the silver lined edge cards and you've got the gold lined edge action cards. You can only play in a single whole round one of each. You can only play the silver ones during the action phase, but you can play the gold ones during both phases. And that's where it really becomes important, because some of these cards are relatively powerful. These are not minor cards. These are cards that are going to allow you to force all other opponents to battle each other, escape anything you want to avoid, but before you know the outcome, force another player, including yourself, to only sail 1 step, even though they're supposed to sail 2, because you're going to be able to push people around, move people around forwards, backwards, move any player 2 steps back, but the player in last is immune. So, things like that. There is significant amount of interaction. This is not just individual dice rolling and bluffing, and that's sort of the nice dynamic, and I've not really seen anything like it before. But it's going to be way too chaotic for people. It's going to be way too over the top interactive for some people. It's even for a dice rolling game, which you expect there to be a high amount of. I will say it plays better at the higher player counts. It really does. There's more dynamic, because what this game thrives off of is the dynamic influence of your fellow pirate captains upon each other. Whether that's cursing, plaguing, dealing with the dead, broken compassing, just going for the pirate kingship of the first place. Because if you're the pirate king, you just get an extra die. If you can attract mermaids to your crew, you get an extra die. That's going to be helpful. And how do you mitigate that? How do you steal it from somebody else to get it on your side? Because ultimately, even though I said it's who wants to be the pirate king, it's who can ultimately get around the square first. And that's ultimately what matters. So sometimes, even if it's a negative effect, you just want to go. And so really, this is a race game disguised elsewise. And so that's really what you need to look at as the bottom line of whether or not this is right for you. Do you want a race game with this much chaos? Because this is chaos inducing in a good way. The nice thing is there's not a lot of ambiguity about this game. It is what it is. It is what it sets out to be. And that's somewhat refreshing nowadays, because sometimes what you see is not what you get, and it leaves you going or scratching your head. What? I thought this was, huh? And that's good in that way. But also, it's not anything else but what you see is what you get, right? Roll, guess, call out, play cards, move around, rinse, repeat. So ultimately, that's what you need to know. It's a deluxeified game. The prototype, when we looked at the price point on crowdfunding, when it came out, that was one of my big comments that I said on the crowdfunding campaign. I said, this is massive price. I want to say this is probably one of the sturdiest, better produced prototypes that I've played in the last year or two. And so if the quality of this is any reflection of the end game, yeah, I mean, I can see why the wooden nature and the upgrades, especially when it comes to things like this, which are they necessary? No, absolutely not. Are you more than happy with the little meeple ships as opposed to the little miniature ships? Absolutely. You know me. I'm not gonna mince words with that. I think, dropping this by, a 10 or 15 bucks and having those regular components would do me just fine. But nowadays, you want something to stand out. It's going to give it a little more table presence. It's going to get a little more oomph factor. And so I can see why they did it as well. I wouldn't mind a little bit more variety with the dice. I wouldn't mind a little bit more of just, different configurations rather than a lot of the tiles being X do this, O do this on a 6-sided die where, it's 50-50. Some more element of that. But like I said, the modular tile nature is probably the thing that mitigates that and gives it the most oomph apart from the cards, which again, it sort of helps you out with that, is you're not just stuck with random cards. But there's a draft at the beginning of the game where you choose 3, pass 3, choose 2, pass 1, end up with 1. So and they're all very well powered in their way. So it's not like you're getting ones that are just like super weak and super strong. There's just a strong sense of, wow, this one's going to help me in some way, shape, or form when you get it. Although, especially in your first game or two, there are some cards in there that you're going to go, do I really want this one? Is this one really valuable? And sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes, depending on your playstyle, the answer is no, I don't really care if I miss the next betting phase, or it's not really that big of a deal to me, or I lost and, I'll just deal with it. I'd rather have something overpowered to move somebody else around rather than, get me back in during a betting phase that I might be able to win and get a coin and, move that way. So your mileage may vary, but that's Lying Pirates. So it's an interesting game. It's a social dynamic party game-esque with a higher production point. And if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. If it doesn't, I mean, nothing I said is going to change this. I mean, this is what you see is what you get. And with all of the stuff I see on crowdfunding on a weekly basis, when I read rulebooks, when I watch gameplay videos, and I said, you kind of wonder whether or not this is right for you. It's refreshing once in a while to see something like this, whether or not you like it, whether or not it is for you, just to know that this is what you're getting. So when you get this product 6 months, 16 months later, whatever it may be, there's not a lot of, oh, I wonder if I'm going to like this. Oh, how does this one actually do now that I've got it in person? There's no question about that. So yeah, I like it from that sense too. There you go. Lying Pirates, Nordic Pirates. Thank you for sending it to me. Thank you for watching. Click. Let me know what you think. Do the YouTube thing. See you around. Stay classy.